This is Christine, your relationship and mindset master doctor and leverage for change. Today I want to address the problem of anxiety in our lives. So, what exactly is anxiety? Well, we incur anxiety in our lives when the problems that we have every single day, we kind of just stuff it. We refuse to really deal with the problems, so we kind of put them on a back burner, hoping they'll go away, which they never do. So, as these problems continue to pile up on top of each other because we're not handling them, we're trying to stuff them somewhere, we're ignoring these problems, then they become overwhelmingly problematic in our lives. So why do we choose to ignore our problems? Because it's a choice. Everything that we do is a choice. Why do we choose to ignore our problems? Well, because we have this really big fear of failure, and we try to, whatever it is that we are not sure that we will be really successful in solving, we kind of just ignore it because we don't want to fail. And so a lot of the problems that we have is that we just ignore it, and we prefer to not do anything about it versus trying and failing, most people, because we just have this fear of failing. And what can happen though when we ignore these problems? Well, they build and they build upon each other. A simple problem which could have been resolved in perhaps a day now becomes a problem that it causes so much more trauma, and it now causes so much, it takes so much more time to resolve because we have stuffed that problem somewhere. And it now becomes like this big, it was like an anthill before, and now it becomes this big old mountain, maybe a volcano that just erupts. And the problem, guys, is that when we do not handle our problems, they are going to keep coming up and bubbling up to the surface. And the reason is that our brain is created to solve these problems. Brain does not like unresolved problems, so it's going to keep bringing it back up and up every single time. And sometimes the times that these problems will bubble up are times when it's just not the best time for them to bubble up. You could be in a church service and all of a sudden just a trigger, something triggers that problem that you didn't solve, and you start crying. You could be with friends, enjoying, everybody's enjoying themselves, and something someone says brings that problem back to mind, that unresolved problem, and you're just like so depressed. You become so depressed. So this is why we need to solve these problems. Our brains are wired to avoid pain. It's a survival tool. And so our normal tendency is to go in the opposite direction of whatever it is that causes us pain. And when given a choice between failing and just doing nothing, most of us choose to do nothing. And then we create all these beliefs about why it is that we choose not to do something. We could come up with all kind of excuses. Oh, it's because of this, or it's because of that, or whatever it is. But the problem is that problem is still there, and you're still going to feel the effects of not resolving that problem. So how do these unresolved problems become problems in the first place? Well, it begins when we make a negative meaning about a problem that we're having. It is also at this juncture that we can actually make changes into whether this becomes a problem or whether this becomes a learning tool. So the meanings that we give to these problems that we're having is what is going to determine how we're going to feel. It's going to bring about certain emotions, and those emotions are going to decide how we move forward in resolving. We have this emotion, so we're going to act upon that emotion. We're going to sometimes do things that are not going to serve us, and so it is really important to create the meaning that is going to empower you versus a meaning that will disempower you. So how can we hope to change how we give meaning to our problems? Well, first, we have to become very aware of what the problems are and the meanings that we're giving to it. Whatever the meaning is, ask yourself, what would I have to believe to have to give this type of meaning to this situation? What do I have to believe about myself? What do I have to believe about this problem? What do I have? Say, for example, you are going through a divorce, right? And you think that, oh, you may give this, you're really, this is a problem, and the meaning that you give to it is that, you know, nobody else is going to want me. I'm going to live alone for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be able to support myself because, you know, my husband really was the major breadwinner. So those are the meanings that you give to this problem. Now, if you were to give a different meaning versus, well, you know, this is something in life and that happens, and it has happened to many other people before me, so I can only now, what can I do to make sure I can support myself? Do I go back and take some classes? Do I go and look for a job? You know, so these are things, whenever you have these problems, if you create a meaning that will be that will be seen as a learning tool versus something that's going to keep you stagnant and trapped into that negative place, then is what is going to determine whether or not you can move forward out of this problem, right? And to resolve that problem. Now, you also have to ask yourself, because sometimes we create these meanings, these negative meanings, and we just accept them to be true. You have to now question this meaning. Is this actually true? Is this really true? For example, with the person who's getting a divorce, is it that I'm going to be alone for the rest of my? Is that true? I mean, it's possible that it's true, but it's not for. I mean, you've seen other people who have been divorced who have found partners and moved on and lived happy lives. So this is not necessarily true. So you have to ask yourself, is this meaning that I'm giving to this problem true, right? Also, if it is true, what strategies can I set up, or what steps can I set up to and do to change that meaning? So, you know, do I get a job? How do I get a job? Do I need to go get some take some classes first to get qualified for this job? So you do your steps, and then you have something written on paper, guys. What I find too is that a lot of the times when we become anxious is because we have all this thing just churning in our heads, and we keep it there, and it just keeps going over and over again, and we're not resolving it, but we just keep thinking about it, and so it becomes so overwhelming that we feel we're going to go crazy, which some people do. But the first thing to really handle your problems is to write these things down. What problems are you having? And look at your problems in in different areas of your lives. For example, in your career, in your emotional emotional life, in your physical aspect of your life, in the mental aspect of your life, in the financial aspect of your life, and in the relational aspect of your life. Look at these 7 areas, right? And just write down, what are the problems that I'm having in these areas? What are the steps or the strategies that I need to take to minimize these problems and eventually get rid of them? You may not ever get rid of them totally, but you can certainly minimize them and manage them so that you're not crippled by them. So next, create these strategies that will reduce and hopefully eventually eliminate that real negativity that you feel and that overwhelm that you feel when you have problems. So eventually, guys, when you do this, when you keep handling these problems as they come up, you will feel this heaviness that just lifts off of you, and then you find it easier to move forward in your life to live the best life that you can, the best and happiest life that you can. So guys, I hope this has helped in some way to give you some tools to help you when this thing that we all suffer from and we all encounter in our lives, anxiety, comes around. So this is Christine, your relationship and mindset mastery doctor and leverage for change. Have a wonderful day. Bye.